Hi, my name is Frank Schaefer, and I come from an evangelical background that the New York Times once called evangelical royalty. I left that more than 40 years ago and have been warning people about the hypocrisy that the evangelicals now embody in supporting MAGA and Donald Trump and all the evils therein, from Jeffrey Epstein on down. But one person really stands out for his hypocrisy and the monstrosity of his dishonor, and that is JD Vance. You know, women who are friends of mine, my wife, my daughter, my granddaughters, sometimes don't like the fact that some men will say something like, well, you know, I sympathize with women because I have a daughter. Don't you have a daughter if someone does something awful to a woman? And quite rightly, they say, we ought to be able to defend women's rights per se, not just because we have daughters or granddaughters we love. But in JD Vance's case, he's a special case. He's married to a brown woman of the kind that ICE is rounding up and dragging by the hair out of parked cars after they smash their windows. In her womb is a brown baby, his fourth child. 4 brown children, a brown wife, and he works for a man who posted a video clip that he then took down without apology, putting another brown woman, in this case Michelle Obama, in a gorilla suit. And yet JD Vance works for this cretin. Has he said anything about it? If I had a brown wife of the kind being dragged from cars after the windows are smashed, actually a mother of 3 of the kind shot in the face by ICE that JD Vance says has absolute immunity. If I had the kind of wife who is being profiled racially in airports and dragged out of line, checking in at security and arrested and taken off in handcuffs and dragged out of factories and parking lots and Home Depots and restaurants, of exactly the same profile, and I was part of a government that was doing this, I would resign if I had any honor. And I do have some honor. My son fought in the United States Marine Corps for America in Afghanistan twice and once in Iraq. And JD Vance says he was a Marine at one point. And the Marines teach values about human life, believe it or not, although they are trained killers, that go against everything ICE is doing in terms of not just the treatment of civilians, but the treatment of non-combatants and, in fact, the laws of war, like the people that were murdered by the right-wing, insane fool who leads the Pentagon now for Donald Trump, the Secretary of Defense, or the Secretary of War, as he likes to call himself, who killed some survivors clinging to a boat in contradiction of the laws of war. And yet JD Vance says he's a Marine and was taught the laws of war. JD Vance has a brown wife and 2 little brown children that look just about the same ages as a child who was arrested by ICE at 5 years old and thrown into a detention center, the kind of detention center that now has a measles outbreak and so little health care that people are dying, literally, who are not fed, including the children who are brutalized. JD Vance works for a man who kept company with and was best friends with a pedophile and a rapist. JD Vance took money from Peter Thiel and yet spoke at a pro-life conference. Well, Peter Thiel is a eugenicist who is paying for and masterminding the development of genetic tests and genetic engineering of embryos, in which thousands of embryos are sacrificed or aborted, if you want to put it this way, or murdered if you're a pro-lifer. And yet JD Vance takes money from him. And he works with the racist Tucker Carlson, who put a Holocaust-denying Nazi on his program without apology, even though many people from the Conservative Heritage Foundation resigned as a result that the Heritage Foundation didn't talk about this and go up against it. JD Vance is fine with all of this. JD Vance has a brown wife who Donald Trump's racism would put in a gorilla suit. And the only reason he doesn't is because JD Vance is his vice president. Otherwise, he'd mock her. Maybe he'd call her Miss Piggy. JD Vance, how do you look at yourself in the mirror every morning with a brown wife and 3 born brown children of the ages ICE is arresting? A wife, the color and racial description of the kind of person dragged from cars when their windows are smashed, handcuffed and sent off without representation and no appeal to a lawyer in our country. You work for a president that attacks anyone who questions him to the point when you were just booed last night in Milano at the opening of the Olympics. NBC, in its fear of this president who goes after media and free speech, cut the crowd booing you because you brought ICE to protect you in Italy as your security detail. And ICE is hated globally in the same way that they are hated and feared in this country. And yet the boos were cut by a media company scared of your master and your Lord, who you worship, not the God you say you worship as a convert to the Roman Catholic Church, your only true God, the God of power and racism that put Michelle Obama in a gorilla suit and posted it online without apology or backing down. That's your wife in that suit. That's you in that suit. That's your children in that suit. And you work for this man? You work for this racist? Every single ICE killing, every single arrest of a child comes from the office of Donald Trump. None of this would happen without the man you work for. You lick-spittle coward that won't even stick up for your own wife. My name is Frank Schaefer.